Hi, everyone. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures, the folks that produce the Tech Home Builder Summits and produce Tech Home Builder content. I'm excited to be joined for this week's Tech Home Builder webcast by Joe Piccirilli, who's the CEO of RoseWater Energy Group. Joe and I know each other probably almost 20 years now, if not more than 20 years.
Yeah.
He's had an interesting journey in this space of technology installed in homes. And I thought he's definitely a person you should know. And we're going to kick off this session with Joe giving us a little bit of a backgrounder on how he got into this business and the places he's been, starting a few years ago.
Yeah, just a couple. I'm about to get my 50-year pin, John. And yes, I've known you for at least 20 of those 50 years. And thank you very much for including me in these great podcasts of yours. You know, having been in this business for so long, I started as a stereo enthusiast. I was working on I was actually accepted to engineering school at the University of Michigan. I was working on a degree. And I had been awarded a small stipend, academic stipend, to go towards my tuition. And unfortunately, the people who awarded the stipend actually made the check payable to me rather than the university. So I took that check, went to the local stereo store, and bought a stereo with it. And I had been a stereo addict ever since.
Was it a stereo or a stereo?
Well, it was as much a stereo as I could afford in those days. So, but it was something I had always had an interest in. And I was in graduate school in 1972 when I was, through a friend of mine, offered a job for with a company in Boston called Tech Hi-Fi. And they put me in large quotation marks, their first management training program, and taught me a lot about the stereo business. And in 1974, a couple guys I went to college with and myself moved to South Florida and started a retail company called Sound Advice. I'm very proud of my Sound Advice days. It became a terrific company. In 1986, we took the company public. And then in 1989, I went through my first retirement. And, you know, like most people who retire too early, I started consulting because I got pretty bored. And during the years of consulting, I developed some training programs and had a list of interesting clients. But I ran into a group of rep distributors, and we started to talk about a new form of distribution business. And at that point, I became one of the founders of a company called Avid. And that was sort of in the mid 90s. And we built this very large national footprinted distribution company, which is where I really began to get a serious introduction to the custom installation and builder community, because we were focused on providing custom installers with everything they needed. Avid grew. We had 37 warehouses around the country, and ultimately was purchased by a Fortune 100. But during the course of that time, I started noting, as I was talking to our dealers, our clients, I started noting that there was a significant amount of client dissatisfaction with all of the home control things we were installing, you know, the early Crestron systems and all of the automation. People were talking about the fully automated home, but we couldn't quite get there. And as I started researching what the source of the dissatisfaction was, I discovered that it really wasn't the product we were selling. For the most part, it wasn't the installations, because for the most part, the installers are very good and the products were very good. So it came down to the fact that power anomalies were causing a large number of the problems that exist in the field. Mm-hmm. So we were getting, you know, voltage sags, voltage surges, micro outages. And as we continued to fill houses with microprocessors, those power quality problems were creating programs to be dropped, data packets to be dropped. You know, all of a sudden everybody's programming disappeared and they couldn't make things work. So I, at that point, became extremely interested in, okay, what is the real solution to power quality? And in 2012, Mario Botero, who's my partner in RoseWater, the two of us started this venture. And our goal was to build the ultimate energy management power quality product available. We had no price point in mind. We just said we are going to go out and build the best. And that's how RoseWater Energy began. What I thought would be a fairly trivial engineering problem, I couldn't have been more incorrect. It took us 4 years to design the product and find a manufacturer who would build a product for us.
Yeah.
And it was in 2016 when we delivered our first product. So that's, in a nutshell, that's my history in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we go deeper on the whole power quality side of things in RoseWater, you, in your Avid days and maybe even in the Sound Advice days, had opportunities to collaborate with builders and developers and such. So do you have any highlights, any big wins from those days that you can touch on, and what made it a win? That would be interesting to hear. And things have changed for sure. But
yeah, it's actually a great question. And I know years and years ago when I participated in my first tech home builder, and I remember pulling you aside and said, John, this is a big chew, but a really necessary chew for you, because I think this is a great thing. Because what I had begun to learn is, as we get to the builder community, a lot of us forgot what made us great salespeople. We never really talked to the builders in their language to find out what their issues really were. And in many cases, we had found that our equipment was not, clients may have wanted it, but it was a source of pain to the builder, because he is the first point of pain. And when something breaks, the client calls the builder, and the builder then becomes incredibly frustrated because he's got God knows how many systems in a house, lots of them.
Sure.
And the idea of putting in a system where there is pain, and we had to learn a lot. Certainly in the Avid days, we had to take over and say, wait, we have to teach our builders that, or our dealers, that when a builder has a job flow, it actually has to be met, because the drywall guys are coming tomorrow.
Right.
And if you delay that, you're never going to be on a job again. The simple, what's now seems obvious, and how important the reliability of our products had to be to qualify, particularly for the big builders. I mean, when you're putting in, thousands of houses a year, you can't have points of pain. So I know for Avid, one of the things that was really interesting, I think we were the first actual Bose distributor in the United States, and Bose had a builder program. And what made Bose so interesting to the builders, Bose gear, I don't care what audiophiles might think of it, Bose gear is bulletproof. And builders like bulletproof, and that became a huge win for us. It was all of a sudden, here a builder can go, wow, it's simple to put in, their documentation is terrific. So it's like, okay, there's a model we need to duplicate, because it's extremely important to that community that it's one thing to sell the client. What you can't do is disappoint the client. And that is the biggest lesson. And that's a huge advantage for RoseWater. I will tell you, we're taking those lessons that we learned, because in the Sound Advice days, we were dealing with highly customized, generally complete homes. We would rarely go into new construction. In the Avid days, we did a lot of new construction work, and that's a whole different game, different game.
So I think we like to, Tech Home Builder, we like to talk about the process supports when we're talking to manufacturers particularly, and distributors have not played a large role in terms of the builder relationships historically. I think that's changing, and Avid certainly was an innovator and unique in their supports on the builder side of things, but it's as much about process alignment as it is about the product set. The products absolutely have to be bulletproof and satisfy the customer in terms of features, benefits, reliability. But if the process supports aren't there, if you can't perform on the job site per those requirements from a project management standpoint. And I would argue that once the system is taken over by the homeowner, there's another piece of process that a lot of times is abandoned, right? Like, how
Yes.
we're going to train this customer? Do they understand that the integrator is going to take care of the support of that system post occupancy, and that typically the builder's out of the equation and it's in the integrator's hands? But that all needs to be communicated clearly and tended to clearly. And I think if we can get more orchestration around these handoffs step by step in the process, we'll have more successful more successful installations, more successful builders with technology, more satisfied homeowners, home buyers.
I couldn't agree more. And it's, the process point of view is so critical. And you look at our guys, our custom guys, and the word custom, you tend to think of one-off. And when you think about our builders, one-off is not part of this equation. It really is, is the process correct? And can you then, as a dealer, if the processes are right, you can scale with your builder. If your processes are not well documented, if your post-sale or post-closing handoff is not well documented, you can't scale. You can't play in this business. It's just not,
Yeah, it's interesting for the different types of builders and builder integrator relationships, right? It's for the big builder, for the high volume builder, it has to do with a lot of kind of technical and production performance, and then that end point. For the luxury custom builder, they have good satisfaction around the technical piece, and they've typically made it clear that the integrator is going to take the ball after occupancy. But what they're afraid of with the integrator is, should I put them in front of a client during the sales process to do a needs assessment and come up with a system, or are they going to present a lot of acronyms and technology, not benefits, and turn that buyer off? Or are they going to end up selling them something that's not what they really need? So it's that selling process where there's so many concerns with the luxury builders. But it's the thing I like to say about the home building market is the most heterogeneous market that you could imagine. There is no one size fits all solution. You just have to have a process whereby you figure out what that mesh is between integrator and builder, and the manufacturer and or distributor's role in the equation as well.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad, John, that you mentioned the sales process in the luxury builder, because in my old days, I used to teach selling, and I find that so many of us have lost the ability to sell. We forget how to make a proper client presentation and do a proper needs assessment. And to your point, I mean, one of the things I like to do on, if I'm presenting RoseWater to a builder, I am looking at first, I am doing a needs assessment of my builder. And then from there, I talk to them about, okay, give me your customer profile, and I will tell you what our needs assessment will look like for your clients, to give him or her the confidence that we will sit there and our goal is to sell the right stuff, to enhance the builder reputation, to enhance my reputation.
Yeah.
So
well, tell us more about the RoseWater platform. So what are the features, benefits, and advantages for the homeowner? And then we could talk a little bit about your proven process for working with builders.
Terrific. The RoseWater device was, from its inception, designed to be the most complete residential energy platform available. So what do we provide? We provide perfect power, regardless of input. So if the utility is connected to my box, or when the delivery is connected, or utility is connected to my device, regardless of the voltage put out by the utility, the output of my device will always be 120 volts, 60 cycles. There can never be a variance. There are no transfer times because I take all my inputs and I convert them to DC, which means the batteries, and we have large scale batteries, the batteries are always powering the inverters, which provide the power to the load. So it's always perfect. And it sounds easy to do, but it's not. So that is one aspect, and that's why most people buy my device, because everything
So
south of
quality of the energy as it's distributed throughout the premises.
Right. And we supply a 200 amp panel. So we supply generally the critical subsystems of a house, because most of the houses that we do are very large.
Uh-huh.
The other thing we do is we provide the ability to integrate a renewable. So if you want to use solar, you can hook solar panels directly into our device. They will recharge our batteries. When the batteries are full, they will provide power to the load because they're going through our batteries to the load. So we allow integration of renewables. And should you have a long-term power outage and you don't have a generator, the solar panels will always charge the batteries, which means whatever is south of our device will always be powered, which is why
What kind
people
of
use
storage capacity do you have? Is that modular?
it. It's modular. The standard is the standard configuration is 28.8 kilowatt hours. That's what comes on board.
Mhm.
And then you can add 2 more 28.8 kilowatt hour modules. So you can get, I think it's 86.4 kilowatt hours, which is a pretty substantial amount of backup.
Yeah.
In most cases,
For
that'll
a
go.
5,000 square foot home, how many hours of power is that?
Well, I think you have to base it on more of a 200 amp panel. And
Mhm.
typically what a 200 amp panel will draw, you will end up, if you put all three, the base and 2 extra modules, you'll probably without recharge run 3 to 4 days,
Gotcha.
which is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We use lead acid chemistry in our batteries or in our devices, and we choose lead acid for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very, very safe technology, but more importantly, it is the most recycled product on the planet. A 94% of a lead acid battery, when its life is over, will go to make a new lead acid battery. The only thing that is not recycled is the acid, and that's put into a neutralizing pond and used for irrigation. So it's environmentally a very friendly battery. And its disadvantages is very heavy, but it's stationary. So once it's put in place, you don't have to move it.
Gotcha.
So that's very good. We also provide, I live in South Florida, we have lightning issues. We provide the same level of lightning protection that the military and broadbands and telcos use at their head ends. We are non-sacrificial. We can withstand from a spec basis up to 40 lightning strikes before it is compromised. So it's a very well built. I designed it so there would be no single point of failure. So it is, if one of my inverter modules, and there's 8 of them, happen to fail, it doesn't even lose capacity because it is N+1 redundant and they're hot swappable. So you just go in, send a new module, pull the old one, put the new one in. It's done from the front. You never shut the unit down.
Yeah.
So
you've been to market for about 4 years now,
That's
4
correct.
years, and you have some luxury custom builder customers that you've been working with through your integrator base?
Yes, and our builders, the builders who, once they see our product, it is funny. We have a couple of builders who literally tell their customers, "I don't want to build your home unless you put in a RoseWater." That's how enamored they are of the product, because everybody in the luxury, everybody wants an automated home. People want to use voice control. People want their shades controlled, and all of those systems function better and longer and more reliably with a RoseWater.
Yeah.
So, back to from the builder point of view, they all say the same thing. I have a RoseWater. I don't get calls.
Yeah.
And that's a huge plus for us. And
Yeah.
more and more people. There's an example of a client actually in the Hamptons, and the dealer, this wasn't a builder example, but the dealer was averaging maybe 15 service calls a month because 15 service calls a year because power in the Hamptons is terrible. And They put in a RoseWater. Now the only time he calls on the house is to upgrade product. He's never had a service call since. So it really does work. It's a terrific device.
And you become a standard for some of these builders. And for those that you don't have, including you on a standard basis, how do you make the case, going back to the sales question, how do you make the case for something that's sitting in an equipment closet or in the basement somewhere, and it's about quality of a utility / infrastructure sort of provisioning versus a big screen television or
exactly
the big speakers, to go back to your AV days where you can wow people with demos. This is a kind of a demo proof sort of product. So how do you make that case?
in the early days, we made the case because we could point to people and say, hey, or we could talk to people and say, do you ever notice that your lights dim or they get a little brighter? Your cable box needs to be rebooted. These things, and there are examples that every person has seen, and those are all power quality issues.
Yeah.
And because if you would like to see those issues eliminated, this is the device that will eliminate those problems.
Right.
And it was in the beginning, it was one very targeted. There are areas of the country, California and Florida are my two biggest markets, because the states, in Florida's case, we are now the third most populated state in the union. So we've been growing incredibly quickly, and nobody can build new generation. So we keep getting more and more people, and the amount of power generation available hasn't changed in 30 years. So our power quality continues to get worse and worse. Right. So people see it. California, between all the rolling brownouts and fires, and I mean, their power quality is starting bad and getting way worse. So people are saying, yes, I can't have this. I can't have this interruption. Yeah. So they find us. But we also, because our device has an onboard computer and communicates, we monitor power quality of every one of our devices. So we monitor the input power. Now we can actually show people. I mean, if you live in Southern California, we can pull up, a couple of years of data and say, this is what your power looks like, and this is why your devices need to be rebooted.
Yeah.
We are also, back to the audiophile days, and this is not a huge market for us, but it is becoming one. The performance of your equipment changes dramatically when your power is perfect. I wouldn't have believed the amount of change until we installed a system here in Florida, and I happened to listen to, the guy had a very sophisticated home theater system, significant expense. And I listened to it before my device went in, and it was obviously very good. But after the device went in, it was a changed system. And the client was like ecstatic. He just went, wow. So there is that incredible improvement in everything in your house.
Gotcha. Where did the name RoseWater come from?
Oh, I'd love to give you some story, and I used to make up some really good story. It was a name of convenience. My partner had the name in a company that he had, and I liked it. RoseWater at one point in time was actually a pretty rare commodity. And I liked it very much. So I said, okay, that's good. We're just going to, his offices are in Canada. And I said, we're going to just use it in the United States, and just went with it.
Well, it's memorable. So we talked a lot about history and in the journey to where you are now. That history gives you a great perspective, I think, on the future. And so, like, step away from the energy space where you're in, and use your broader perspective on installed technology in homes. What do you think some of the incipient trends are that we're going to start to see playing out, let's say in 2025? Where are we headed? I'm sure you're an opinionated guy, Joe.
Oh,
so
come
I'm sure
on.
you have thoughts on this, and I want to.
I thought
I've been known to have a few opinions myself.
Looking at this, and I have been looking at it as you know, for a long, long time, and there are a few things that really strike me. One, for not very good reasons, or not reasons we could have predicted, people have spent a lot of time at home in the last 9 months. And I think this entire trend towards a healthier house, a healthier environment, is going to be a big deal. I think more and more people are interested in the quality of air, their entire environment.
Yeah.
How does it become healthier?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge deal coming forward, and
And
our
I think,
guys.
Joe, on that one, I think we're at the very beginning of being able to market and sell that well. There's a famous pub crawl discussion that I had with John Fisher, who was with April Air at the time, about ASHRAE 62.2, and that the indoor air quality guys have to figure out a way to communicate what air quality is in a little sexier fashion than 62.2.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, even just like, what is stale air? What is fresh air? What does it do to you physiologically? We haven't really done good storytelling. We've listed, lots of allergens and such, but we haven't made it compelling from a user experience perspective. So I think we got a ways to go there, and huge opportunity, like you say.
The opportunity is going to be great, because you're absolutely right. Right now, we have a group of technicians and scientists talking about it who have no idea how to talk to normal people. And the
Yeah.
opportunity is, if a group of us can get together and figure out how to talk to normal people about this,
Yeah.
it's a winner, a big
Yeah.
winner.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is it's not fluff. I mean, it really will help people, which is terrific.
And they're very interested in it. We just need to
Yes.
figure out how to meet that demand. What else?
So, I think that one is important. I'm going to stay away from the importance of power quality, because I think power quality, no
You've
matter
made
what we
that
do,
point
yeah, is going
very
to get
subtly.
more, more important. What I do like is, we are going to see, and this is sort of, it's another upgrade. People have learned from being home that we have given short shrift to networks, to how do you construct a good home network. You don't go out and buy a $69 switch. You don't go out and put in an $80 router. It's way too important. And I think you're going to see our guys begin to really become and morph into more network experts.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes incredibly important as we look at the studios. The studios, isn't Wonder Woman 84 going to be introduced streaming?
Right.
I mean, think about that. Think about the bandwidth to get that right.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be, how do we get more bandwidth in a home? How do we spread it around the home? And I know many people present themselves as, oh yeah, we have this down. Well, no, you don't. There's a lot of room to play here. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
think the integration points with the service provider are not well tended to either, right? The
exactly.
infrastructure could be perfect, and what's coming in can be not what the homeowner thinks it should be or is, and you can have low performance there. So there's a lot of, maybe it's remote monitoring and management of that network, and gets you to some of those questions being solved as well.
Exactly, because getting the cable from wherever is on the street to the demarc of your home is a huge weak point right now. I know when in my current home, when I watched the cable company put in that wire, I made them rip it out. And I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to install my own stuff here. Just please, just leave that to me, because that's not going to work. But I think there's opportunity there. What else do I like that I see these days? I like the entire, there is this resurgence that I'm seeing in listening to music as a more communal activity. You're starting to see it at college. You see the resurgence of a turntable, and you see the resurgence of vinyl. And we can talk about whether vinyl or digital is better or worse. That's not the point of it. What I see is people listening to music in groups.
Yeah.
John, when you and I grew up in college, how often did we get a new album and I would invite 6-8 people to a dorm room or my house and say, hey, let's listen to the latest Pick Your Poison album.
I joke, Joe, that the reason why we do the events that we do is so that I can impose my music tastes on people during the general sessions. And sometimes there are revolts on the staff to what I've put in place, but I know what you're talking about in terms of the communal listening experience.
So, I have, my oldest son is 22 years old. He's just turned 23, and he's coming home to visit. He comes in on Saturday, and I was so heartened to hear him say, "Dad, I have 20 new songs for you to hear." My heart was warmed by that. It was just like, wow, he wants to sit down. He's coming in with his girlfriend, and he said, "I want you and everybody to sit down and hear my new choices." And I'm going, that gives me great hope for the future.
Yeah. Okay, so we're recording here in the middle of the holiday season or just before it kicks off in earnest. And I do want to have a Italian American to Italian American, just, a couple of questions for you. One is, do you do the Feast of the Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve? And on Christmas Day, is it lasagna, manicotti, or something else?
Both great questions. This year, for the first time in a long time, I am not cooking the Feast of Seven Fishes, but I have a favorite Italian restaurant that does a wonderful job, and I have already got my table for 6 people, and it's my kids, my wife, and we are having, of course, the dinner of 7 fishes on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve wouldn't be the same without it. And Christmas Day, our traditional meal, because, well, John, as you know, we are Italians, and carbohydrates are a way of life. And my tradition is, I get up in the morning, I prepare a pasta, usually a lasagna, a risotto, and then I get up very, very early. I make dough, and I will make pizzas from scratch or strombolis from scratch.
Wow,
Yes,
the
because
carbohydrate hat trick.
But
Carbohydrates as a way of life.
Yes.
I like, that's a good line. And that may be the way for us to end this interview. I really appreciate you taking some time to share your story with us. Good luck with the continued growth and expansion of RoseWater. Builders, especially in the high end, check this stuff out, because it's a quality booster for everything else that you install tech-wise. And Joe, have a great holiday. Thanks again for your time, and we'll see you next time on Tech Home Builder.
John, thank you. Happy holidays to you as well.
Thank you.